Hi everyone, welcome to One Degree Hotter Student Stories segment where we tell real stories of today's students. There are so many ways to go about pursuing your education, but we often only hear the typical story, where students move away to go to college after they graduate high school, graduate in 4 years, and then get a job right out of college. This story has never been the only story, and it's becoming less and less common. That's why I share real student stories that you can learn from and be inspired by. That way you're empowered with knowing that there are many ways of getting 1 degree hotter. Today, I'm so excited to have a former student of mine on the segment. Viri Perez is here with us today. She's a graduate of San Jose State University, our local university. She has a bachelor's in business administration and has worked at Google in various capacities since 2017. Viri was one of my students back when I was a college advisor, when I first started all of this work, and so it is so beautiful to have her here today telling her story. Viri's story inspired me because it's one of making the most out of the unexpected. Viri was a very competitive student in high school, but she didn't get the results that she expected or wanted when she applied. Nonetheless, she made the most of it, and she's now thriving at Google and traveling the world. So if you have ever worried about not getting the results you expected from college admissions, you're going to want to stick around. Viri, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to have you again. You're the first of my former students who's been on the segment. I hope there's many more, but it is such a beautiful throwback to have you here. So thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on the podcast.
Well, I'm really excited for everyone to hear your story, but let's get started with learning a bit about you. Tell us about yourself.
I grew up in San Jose in a lower income community here in the Alma neighborhood. I like to consider myself Google grown. I started since I was a child. I started at a nonprofit after school program and summer academy here in my community where I received help from people at the local universities to do my homework and even find out a little bit more about different enrichments and extracurriculars like computer science, which weren't easily available to me given that I did not have a computer at home. So I was fascinated by the idea of computers and eventually became the instructor at this program. So I, during high school, went back and interned for free. So I volunteered and taught children computer science from 7 a.m. up until 3 p.m. every single day during my summers, and it was what got me to where I'm at today. So I ended up then obviously applying to colleges my last year. I would have considered myself an ideal student. I obviously had pretty good grades. I had extracurriculars, leadership, youth sports. I was part of my district's leadership council and did a lot of community service. I think it was over 700 hours, which is
Oh my gosh.
quite insane. So I was always working towards that moment of applying to college. That
Yeah.
was the number one priority even before high school. I had everything. I took advantage of all the resources that were available and ultimately applied to, I forgot, probably 9 universities,
Yeah.
all in California. And to my surprise, the only one that accepted me was San Jose State.
Awesome.
And
Let's take a pause there because I don't want
yeah,
you to tell us the whole story
yeah,
quite yet. Okay, let's say that for a little bit.
perfect.
But tell me a bit more about you as a person. Where is your family from? What was your family like? Just briefly, tell us about you.
Yeah, I would say I grew up first generation, so both my parents are from Mexico, Jalisco, and I grew up in a household where my dad worked in the tree. He's an arborist. He worked in the tree cutting business, and my mom or still is a housewife. So I grew up with my mom being very present at home. My dad as well, despite him working a very intense labor job, he was very present. He was always very involved in my education, and that was from the beginning the number one priority. And they told us, you don't have any other work that you should be focusing on. Your only job right now is to get good grades in school. So that was one of the main principles and focus of our family dynamic was
Yeah.
education. And yeah, I grew up in a family where we weren't allowed to speak English at home. Even amongst siblings, it was just speak Spanish. What are you doing? Speak Spanish. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little challenging because you go into high school and it's You might, like, at least at that time, you might have a little accent or something. Specifically in a community like Willow Glen, it was a little bit difficult at first, but ultimately I ended up finding pretty good friends. And yeah, I've always been very proud to be Mexicana. And yeah, I think that the people around me, my family, my cousins, everyone has been so like education driven. So I've grown up luckily with like really good influences around me.
And you know what's so funny is you started talking about making really good friends at your high school, and I don't know if you noticed, I got teary-eyed. Like we're 5 minutes into this, and I'm already like almost crying because I just got this flashback to all of you, and to this day, I still say that's the best job that I've ever had. And just to give people a little snippet of what that looked like, I think you were in both my first and second years, but the second year. I found like a patio chair couch thing literally on the street, and I was like, this is perfect for our corner. And so we put it in our little corner of the office, and students like you and other students would come in and sit there and chose to hang out with us at lunch. Like,
That
that
was
was
the
the
spot.
coolest thing. Oh.
that that's so insane because it like it takes me back. It really does.
Yeah, but thank you for sharing that. I think that's really important context for people to know because, you are first gen, you came from a low income background. That was the program that you were in with me is I was there with my co-advisor to help low income first generation students go to college. And so I think that context is important to take into consideration as we're hearing your story. Awesome. Well, you already told us a little bit about your background, but let's start from like the beginning of your education. You said your parents always said that this was your priority, but tell us a little bit more about what your education was like.
Yeah, I grew up in public school. I went to public school since my like early went to the community centers pre-K. So my mom was going to English learning classes while I
Mm.
was being taken care of at pre-K. So it's those resources that are available in the community that ultimately help keep children focused in education, which is very important. And in my case, I was always in dual language, so bilingual immersion since an early age. And despite being an English learner, something, I don't know, I was always like a year ahead. So instead of going to, let's say, the third grade English, I was always in the fourth grade English class. I was a GATE student, so that was also part of why a lot of the times I was in these like advanced courses. And it's crazy because obviously, like, I mean, a lot of the children in my class and I all grew up in very similar environments. So yeah, I'm lucky to have had that focus at least when I went home.
Yeah, yeah. So a bilingual education, community resources really supported you and your family so that you could focus on jobs and taking care of kids for your parents. And then for you, you were able to stay productively busy and, learn important things that you needed to learn about. So that's great to hear. And again, you mentioned this before, like your parents always said, education is your job. And college was often a focus for you, even from the early years. So tell us about what you learned about going to college when you were young. What were the messages that you heard?
Yeah, I think I try to think back and like when was this like you have to go to college concept introduced to me, and it I think goes back to like university days at like my elementary school where like
Mm.
teachers would put their little flags out similar to like walking into college and career center where you see all the flags posted in the top. It was like a week of like college, like a college week, and like we learned about the different universities. So that was really cool. And I like from an early age, it was like, okay, I had cousins, older cousins that were now, I would say they're like maybe like 13, 15 years older than me. So they were obviously like already going to college. And I remember them going to college, but
Mm.
I was still very young, so I didn't really get exposed to it until my brother, my oldest sibling, my brother went to college and he ended up getting into Berkeley. Incredible university
Yeah,
and go Bears. And that was when I was like, "Oh my god, like that's to our family, my mom's eyes like tearing up." And I think I was in 6th grade. I remember that was a moment where I was like, even in middle school, we had the College and Career Center, I remember. I need to go to the College and Career Center. And funny enough, the advisor at the center at Willow Glen Middle School was at the orientation that my brother attended. And she was like, "Oh, yeah, I saw your parents and your brother." Yeah, I forgot her
interesting.
name. Yeah, I think that she might have like still worked some way at the university. So
Hmm.
that was very motivating. I didn't know
Mm.
about Berkeley being the top public university at that time in the
Mm-hmm.
nation, until I realized, like, oh my God, this is such a big deal. He got into this university, and it was just so big for my family. And that
Yeah.
made me want to get into Stanford, which I didn't get in, but I was like, you can get into Berkeley, I'm getting into Stanford. It's very
Yeah.
competitive here. So, yeah,
And
funny
they're
enough how that
rival
happened.
schools too, so that
Yeah,
the competitiveness, I'm sure.
yeah,
Oh, okay, awesome. Well, it just goes to show that like all those little things really matter. There's a concept called college knowledge, which is just building people's awareness and knowledge about college, and I also love that it rhymes. And college knowledge needs to be built from a very early age. So I'm glad to hear that college week and all the little flags that your teachers had were part of how you started to understand what college was. And then hearing that your brother like really motivated you is very cool too. So now let's move to your college application process. This is like the juicy part of your story, like the big turning point so far in your life, right? So talk to me about the college application experience, actually applying to college, preparing, all of that. What was that like?
yeah. That actually, it's funny. The college journey didn't, like, it wasn't over the course of just my last year. And I think that that's a concept that a lot of students like forget, is the college journey and the application process actually starts off years before. So like you need to prep to get to that place. And in my case, I spoke briefly about it, but I was doing SAT, um, ACT, like prep since before even like entering junior year. So like I remember sophomore year going to the prep courses, and that's one thing. Despite us being low income, my parents were not limited when it came to funding these education programs. They would save up the necessary funds so that we would be able to be like a part of those. And it's oftentimes we see like a very specific demographic having access to these programs, but in our case, my parents were always very generous in terms of like, okay, you want to do this course? It's better than buying my child, let's say, a Nintendo. Like, yeah, of course, do the course. So my parents early on like told us like, if you want to do something for education, we'll fund it. Like, let us know, and like we'll do whatever needs to happen for you guys to be there. So
Yeah.
yeah, early on freshman year, obviously like I had my goals of schools, and it's funny because I remember even the first week of high school of saying, okay, this is where I want to go. This is what my course schedule is going to have to look like in the next couple of years. I'm that person. Even in college, I was that person that would put the classes that I needed to take to get wherever I needed to go. So I planned years ahead, and I currently have my 5 year plan. So yeah, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to take these AP courses. I'm not gonna take, which is a misconcept. I think that if you're gonna succeed in a regular course versus an accelerated course, more power to you. Do that. Like as long as you excel and you're comfortable and doing well, that's all that matters. But for me, I was like, I need to do the accelerate, I need to do the APs, I need to do the honors courses. So that's what I did the whole 4 years, and it was very intense. I
Yeah.
didn't have to do that. That's what I realized. I didn't have to do that. But yeah, that was a big part of it, is like prepping, taking accelerated courses, trying to, have a competitive edge. And like
Yeah.
sports, leadership, extracurriculars, I was always very conscious that I needed some of those stuff in order to stand out, which is a misconcept because it's like ultimately like it comes down to who's reviewing you, and like based on the application pool for that university's college, in this case the business college at the university, it, a lot of the times even the person reviewing it might not have the ultimate like decision making power. So I prepped really early from the early on, but when it came closer, I was very involved in like having my drafts reviewed for my application, going to the college and career center. Sometimes I asked to step out of, let's say, some of my extracurricular courses. So I would like leave, let's say, my yearbook class for a little bit to go to the college and career center and work on my applications. And then after school, I actually, my last year ended up not doing one of the sports that I did. So I didn't do soccer because that was during application season. So I left my sport just to hone in and like really focus on the application. And there's so many drafts and so many versions of my different admissions letters and stuff and that I still use today. Fun fact, I still use them in some
Hmm.
applications because those got me so many scholarships at school that
Mhm.
I was like, these stories are good. I need to keep, I didn't put that much work in for nothing. We're going to keep using them until they're not relevant. So they're still
Yeah.
used. They're still
I
used
love
today.
that. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love to hear that. And hey, you were saying earlier you only have control over yourself. Who is in charge of making admissions decisions also may not actually have control over that. And so, for anyone listening, if you're not going to listen to me, because I say this all the time, at least listen to Vidi, please. Like, she said it too, right? The people who are reading your applications don't always actually have control over who gets in or who is accepted or not. And so, yeah, you want to stand out, but I think what you're kind of saying too is like be yourself
Yeah.
and do what works for you. You don't need to torture yourself with seven AP classes. Thankfully, now the SAT is not really a thing anymore. It's optional at a lot of schools, but that's kind of what I'm hearing from your story there. And then in terms of your essay, I'm so glad that you're still using that. That's really cool that you're still using it. And I think that's great advice too. Like you got a lot of scholarship money from it. You still use it to apply to jobs, is what I'm hearing. Like, don't let that story go to waste. And it's still your story throughout your life. Like, even if it's through college or applying to your first job or even later in life, like that's still your story and it's still valuable.
No, I was gonna say, I think like the beginning line sentence on one of the prompts, I use like computer skills are considered a sixth sense in today's society. So it goes back to where I'm at today. So like
Mm.
that's the reason they're very relevant. It's like talking about my
Oh,
story and like how my story has gotten me to where I'm at today, and like it's still very applicable. So it's crazy. Yeah.
nice. That's awesome. And tell me briefly, for the application experience, how did you feel? Were you stressed? Were you putting a lot of pressure on yourself? Was it chill? Like, how did you feel?
Mixture of both. I think that it came in waves. So like
Mm,
getting started and the submission are the most difficult parts. The drafting process, it feels kind of like a playground. You're iterating, you're drafting, reviewing. I did like a little skeleton for each of them and then spoke, I think, with your team um on like which ones were would resonate more with me and like what would
mm,
help me tell the best story. I think that that's one of the things that was
mhm.
very helpful in like becoming authentic is like deciding on the prompts that were more relevant to you. And that's where the authenticity comes. And that's why they're still relevant today, is because it's like they're very true to who I am. In my case, it was very difficult at first trying to choose the prompts because I don't know. I feel like in high school, your identity is a little bit, you're still questioning your identity. So it was a little difficult for me to understand if I was making the right decision going into technology and like business. And also trying to understand if my story was going to be relevant. And that's very daunting, is like, is this going to resonate to the person reading it? And
Mhm.
there's no right answer because it's like you don't know who's reading it. It's not a one size fits all. So yeah, that's the scariest part. And then once you get started, you kind of find what you're passionate about and that excite you. And you'd be surprised how many people are willing to help, specifically in your, family and your friends. Like you'd be surprised how willing people are to help you. Leverage your village. That's what I always tell people. So
Yeah.
yeah, they helped get me to the finish line, and then submitting is the scary part. It's like, oh, like is it ready? Is it like one last look? Sending it to my sister and her college mates. It was,
Yeah.
getting it to the finish line was a little scary, but then you submit and it's out of your hands. It's out of your control and you just wait.
You are saying all the things that I still say to my students today. So this is very affirming for me too. And again, if people listening aren't going to listen to me, at least listen to Vidi. Because all the things that you said are hella true. Submitting is very scary. And I'm hearing that the most important part was staying true to yourself and look at how much that has paid off for you. I think like what, 10 years later almost at this point. So love to hear that. So now I want to hear about what the college acceptance season was like for you. So once all the acceptances and rejections were coming in, what was that like and what happened?
My first acceptance early on, I forgot what month it was, but it was the first acceptance was San Jose State. That's the first message that I received was San Jose State, and I was like, okay, I have one in the bag.
Hmm.
Let's see what's coming up next. And then the season continued, and March, April, May came about, and it was rejection, rejection. I think there was two wait listings.
Mm.
So I was waitlisted to two universities, and it was just, so heavy because San Jose State was supposed to be my backup. I came from a household, like I told you, education was very important, and my parents invested a lot for me to, go where they wanted me to go. And like my siblings, I had my brother go to UC Berkeley. He's now an attorney. My sister went to UC Davis, and she's a director of AI research. Like it's, I have siblings who had very impressive backgrounds, and I wanted to measure up to them, but it's like ultimately I have my own path, and that's something I learned. It's like, okay, I only got accepted to San Jose State, but we'll see. Like we'll try it out. If I can transfer somewhere else, I'll transfer somewhere else. If not, then we'll make the most of it. We'll take advantage of the opportunity, find the resources available at that university to get me to where I want to go. And I was very persistent, and I was like, okay, my end goal is to end up at a tech company like Google, and I'm going to get there. And I knew from early on that I set my mind to it, I was going to be able to accomplish it.
You made a lot of questions come up for me. So one, the school that we were at was kind of a competitive school.
Very competitive generation, I would say.
Yeah, and so I imagine that there was probably like some comparison or like emotions around that. Tell me about what that was like.
Yeah, it was very discouraging. I feel like the last decision that I received was UC Davis. And that was the day of our Rampede. And that's the biggest, that's the last, like, what do they call them? I'm like totally blanking, but it's like the last school event where we have like this big celebration to close out the school year. And I was in leadership planning,
Mm.
like delivering this event to the students, and I find out right before it starts that I didn't get into UC Davis. And that was, I had my first anxiety attack. And that was so sad to go through and like realize, okay, all these other students and all of my friends and all the people I was in classes with are getting accepted to these incredible universities, and it's just, it becomes a game of comparison, and it's like that's not going to help you, because at the end of it, you all have your own path. That's what I say. And it was just discouraging at first, but this Miss Hernandez, who was one of my favorite teachers, sat me down. She's now passed, sadly,
I remember her.
and she was an angel. And she helped me through a lot of the difficult situations that I had. The 2 years that she was at Willow Glen. And that day, she sat me down and she told me, take a deep breath. What can you fix? How can I help you? Like, what can we do to help this? And I was like, there's not much we can do. Like, this decision was made. And she's like, remember what I told you. And she told us from the beginning, when you get to a job, they're not going to ask you, at least the majority of percentage, your colleagues are not going to ask you what university you went to. All that matters is who you are and what you make out of the opportunity. And I remember those words very clearly, is like, it all comes down to who you are and what you do. And like, you're going to create that story for yourself. And like, she really encouraged me. She was like, you're going to make that story for yourself. You're going to go to San Jose State. You're going to do so great at San Jose State. And if you don't like it, you can always transfer out. And she was like, you can always transfer out, but try it out. See how you like it. You might be surprised. And then that's something she always told us. She's like, it ultimately ends up on the person to get to where they want to get where they want to get to. And you still have opportunities open for you. So don't close yourself off just because you got to know. You'd be surprised about the yeses that you're going to receive after you walk through those doors. So yeah, she was she was amazing. So I'm very grateful
She
for
was
her.
she was a very amazing person. Miss Hernandez was the leadership teacher at Willow Glen High School and moved on to another school. I think she had breast cancer a few years ago and did pass. And she was just a very special person, very loving with her students. And it's so beautiful to hear the impact that she still has had on you now. So she lives on through you and so many of the other students. And so that's a beautiful thing. Rest in power,
Yeah,
Miss Hernandez.
rest in power.
Yeah, she was a great person. I remember very vividly, Vita, this is probably after you talked to Miss Hernandez because you were very composed in this situation. I remember you walking into the career center and me asking you, hey, like, what did you decide? Or like, what were your results? And again, you were very composed. You were very positive. Like, you had like a conviction. You're like, I didn't get into any of the schools that I wanted to, so I'm going to go to San Jose State. And pretty much that, I'm going to make the most of it. That image of you, I think you were literally at the entrance of the career center, and I can just remember you like I could still feel the fear, but I could also feel the bravery and the courage in your decision of like I'm gonna go to San Jose State and I'm gonna make the most of it, and you like really meant it. So yeah, it's not easy to get lots of rejections. It's not easy to not get the results that you expected, but I think you're just a great testament of everything happens for a reason, and we all have our own path, as you keep saying. So with that, tell me about how you ended up like coming to terms with your decision. You could have chosen to go to community college and then try to transfer, but tell us about how you decided on San Jose State. Also, quickly, I want to say that we are not talking smack about San Jose State here. Like, we love San Jose State. But I
I
think
love
the
San Jose.
context is that in San Jose, like in many cities, your local college is the one that nobody wants to go to because they think that they're going to see all of their classmates there and that it's going to feel like high school. So I think this may be part of what you were feeling or thinking at that time. So yeah, just want to be very clear about that. There's no shade to San Jose State here, but this is kind of the context that the youth in San Jose tend to be coming from. But anyway, with that, tell us, how did you ultimately decide I'm going to do San Jose State?
I decided that I was going to write it out, try it out, because I was applying to other universities for adjacent, like similar, like business adjacent, like degrees, but it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the degree that I wanted, which San Jose State
Mm,
and I believe Santa Clara and San Diego State University had, which is business administration, concentration in management information systems,
mm-hmm.
which, for those that don't know, it's essentially a combination of computer science and business, and they teach you more of like the data intelligence and operations, functions within business in a technical aspect. So you learn how to code Python, SQL, learn how to do all these analysis with the concentration in business. So you still get the experience of like having a business major and a degree in business administration with that function of, the comp sci side of it. So it's really nice. And I knew that I wanted to do that. So, I wasn't going to close myself off. I was going to try it out. And I'm gonna do my GEs. I could have done them at another college, like at a community college, but I was like, might as well try it out at San Jose State because you start within the actual university and you get the professors that ultimately sometimes end up teaching the more specialized courses. So I tried it out and to my surprise, October came around, so 3 months in, I get a message on LinkedIn from a recruiter sourcing at Google and that
Okay.
I'll and that's where things are meant to happen. So I ended up taking the risk of like, okay, I'm gonna do my GEs, and who knows, I might like it. But early on, I ended up getting that email, and that's what kept me there. So I just tried it.
Nice.
I was ultimately with the goal of having to get that degree. So it was either going to another university, getting business admin, minor comp sci, but this was already one. So it was one
Mm-hmm.
program, which was very, attractive at the time. So I
Yeah.
did that.
No, and that makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like it was, definitely the major that you were looking for. And a few months in, you got this sign. Before we jump into your transition to tech, tell us a little about your experience at San Jose State. What was that like? Was it a high school reunion? Did you meet other people? Like, bust all the myths for us.
Oh my God, it was not a high school reunion. I did have friends that were from Willow Glen that went to the university, but ultimately I ended up finding my own community because my friends from high school ended up doing other careers, other getting other degrees. So the course overlap wasn't there. And then also the extracurriculars, we were all at different places. My focus when I got into college was to get to a top tech company. And like I knew, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I was quickly activating myself. So I started college, I was joining different like the computer science organization. There's also other organizations that are tech adjacent, like software engineering and other like hackathon organizations where I also got involved. So I was kind of integrating myself into the tech community and like trying to learn from other people. It's like what are you guys doing? I wanted to know what people were doing because I was the first ultimately, and I was the first in my family to go into a former tech degree role or like tech degree. So I was just trying to meet people and find out what they were doing and ended up meeting amazing friends throughout, like very, a spectrum of friends because it's like we weren't all at the GEs, we weren't all in the same degree, but I ended up finding really nice people and friends that I'm still close to today. And yeah, it was amazing. I ended up joining multiple clubs or organizations on campus, becoming part of the leadership for those organizations, which ultimately helped introduce me to people within technology and like these big companies. I have the privilege of partnering with companies like Cisco, IBM, now Google, and ultimately creating this branding for myself so that whenever companies were coming on campus, they knew to reach out to me. It was just kind of like word of mouth. Oh, you're going to go? Reach out to this girl. And like people were reaching out to me for me to help them bring their company and their products into the university. So it was a very different experience than your typical college experience. I'd say it felt kind of like working in tech because I was
Yeah.
running around meetings and trainings and events all day. So yeah.
Yeah, and so for people who aren't in the area, San Jose State is in San Jose. San Jose is the capital of Silicon Valley, y'all. I don't know who decided that San Francisco is now Silicon Valley, but San Jose is the OG Silicon Valley. Like you mentioned, like OG companies, Cisco and IBM, like that's where everything started here. So that's part of the huge value of San Jose State is that you're in the heart of tech. So it's very cool to hear how your experience was the typical college experience, but also like you're running around doing hackathons and getting emails from people at all these big companies. Like I can't imagine a better school to do that at than San Jose State.
Yeah, and that's exactly, I think that was the reason I ended up, things happen for a reason. And I think
Yes.
ultimately, I mean, I am a person of faith. So I think that ultimately I was there for a reason. And like, I had to land there to get to where I'm at today. So, yeah, I don't regret going to San Jose State at all. It was the best decision. I should have, had that as my first choice since the beginning because of obviously its proximity. I mean, we have NVIDIA. Like we have Google,
Yeah.
we have
It's
Microsoft, we have Meta, we have them all here. So Salesforce, like all of them are here. The amount of opportunity for tech, of course, I was supposed to end up there. Like I was supposed to end up there to, get my foot in the door and be where I'm at today.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that bias that you probably had of like, oh, it's my neighborhood college, like it's not that good, maybe was clouding your vision at that time when really, like you said, that should have been your first choice. It had exactly the major that you wanted, and all the tech companies are in your backyard. I swear you can see NVIDIA from the dorms probably.
Yeah, no, it was definitely the best decision of like giving it the opportunity it deserved. And yeah, it was a ride, and I, enjoyed every bit and every minute of it.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. For anyone considering San Jose State, highly recommend. For those of y'all in San Jose, stop being a hater and
Right.
consider San Jose State. All right, Viri. So now you did college at San Jose State. It was a good choice. Tell us about your transition in tech. Let's give a little highlight of what that was like.
Yeah, the transition in tech, and I hinted at this early on, but 3 months into my university experience, starting at San Jose State, I get this email from a recruiter, a contracting company that works for Google, and they were looking for a campus ambassador, a student innovator for Google Cloud. And that's my first introduction into tech. If I'm being very honest with you all, I was just starting off college, and the only technical experience I had was teaching kids how to block code, which, if you don't know, it's basically like putting puzzles together in like a Frozen interface. It's like the princesses of Frozen and like Mario. I don't know. It's like they're playing a game. So that's what I taught kids how to use Google Drive and Google Workspace, typing, spreadsheets, documents, the basics, but ultimately that's what got me noticed. And they were like, hey, we see that you have experience teaching computer science and teaching people computer skills, which is not AI, like it's not AI tools. So I said yes, I have the experience, and I said I was competent, and I said I could do it, because guess what, we can do it. You can learn on the job. And I said I was able to do it, and I interviewed. So to my surprise, they were actually impressed with my interview. Sometimes, I didn't fake it, because I knew I was able to do it. I knew I was competent because, I'm someone that's adaptable and someone that learns really fast and easy. So, yeah, I got this opportunity and I started working at Google Cloud at the age of 18. And that's what got my foot into the door. And I worked with them for 2 years as a student innovator. Then they transitioned the role into an unpaid, like, organization work. It was more like a club role, so like leading a Google developer club at your university. It was towards the end of my college years, so like I decided to step away from the role and focus on other projects like hackathons. So I was partnering with IBM and Cisco during my last 2 years and hosting some of the largest hackathons in the Bay Area. So that's another thing that, helped drive this competitive edge and introduce me to a lot of people within the industry, was hosting these events, getting acquainted with the engineering and developer community, because while I'm still a technical person, I didn't have experience within the field. So learning about, the work that they do and how they create these incredible products was really fun. And then ultimately, the last year came about, and that's where during my years, I had interned at Riverbed, which is a mid-sized company in San Francisco. I interned at Intel, which is a pretty large company here in the Bay Area. And my last internship was at Google as a business intern, driving strategy for their support operations team, which is the team that I'm on right now. And I transitioned into this role after my internship full time. And the reason that I chose to come back to Google was ultimately because of the people. And I love working here. I think that it's also, it's a company that opened doors for me. It's a company that does a lot of good for the world. And I truly believe in its core values and the company's mission in centralizing the world's data. I think that we do quite well, and we're doing a lot of work in this space to improve it. So yeah, I ended up getting offers for other tech companies. Some of them were also like, it's really hard to make this decision. And if I'm being honest, it didn't even come down to the pay. It didn't come down to money. It ultimately came down to me analyzing opportunity and the company culture. So I ended up, working in tech and then finding myself questioning where I would fit the best. And my mind always went back to Google. So I was like, okay. And I ended up coming back, and I've been here for 4 years in this role, different iterations of the role. So I've been transitioned into different parts of the business, but it's still been with the centralization of ads measurements. I'm in the ads vertical. I'm helping out with like the analytics part of ads. It's like measuring the performance of ads, of how different companies' investments are performing across different mediums and platforms. So
Awesome. That is so cool and great to hear that you had like a hard decision. Like, oh, I have all these offers from all these tech companies, and which one do I choose? I think often the assumption is that like you have to go to an Ivy League school or something like that to have that problem of having to choose between great offers at various tech companies. But clearly, that is not always true. And those hidden gems like San Jose State can really lead you to a successful place. So, love to hear it. I think you've always been preparing yourself for tech. But love to hear how San Jose State was a really pivotal part of you officially transitioning into the career that you wanted.
yeah, I think San Jose State was a big part of my decision to go into this part of the company and this function of strategy and operations, and ultimately realizing that the career and degree that I had chosen was centralized a lot. Yes, like we were building out tools through code for, let's say, like a sales organization, building out a sales tool to analyze the sales performance data and stuff. And then also the aspect of data analytics of like utilizing SQL script to analyze, let's say, chunks and loads of data coming through, let's say, a company like Yelp. We actually did like a Yelp analysis when we were in college, and I really enjoyed it. And I was like, oh my God, it's so fun to, to me, and it's very, I mean, very biased because I have a background in this, but coding is very similar in specific languages in coding to natural language, very similar to English. Like once you get a hang of it, you can, write your script to pull different data fields that you want. And then the cool part is like you can visualize it and deliver this story. And I think the storytelling part was what I really loved and excited me. And I was like, okay, I really want to go back, and like, oh, like the opportunities and like the power you hold when you know how to analyze data, you know how to listen to people. So you know how to get the story from different people working, let's say, with different products. So you're able to see how the product's performing, but then you ultimately don't know how the product performs until you have those conversations with individuals. And like San Jose State has an incredible program for MIS that teaches you how to do that. So I love that it wasn't just centered on either or, on like business or tech. It would like it really integrated the two and taught us how to, deliver insights in a very like curated and fun way. So I ultimately was like, okay, these are the different opportunities I'm being offered. Which one relates more to what I want to do? And then it went back to like the experience that I had during my actual formal internship with Google, where I had the opportunity to analyze like COVID-19 data and how it impacted like our operations at Google for support specifically and like technical solutions. And it was so much fun. And I thought about it. I was like, okay, this company's offering this and this company's offering this. But then I was like, oh my God, the people I was working with at Google really made this fun. It kind of felt like the parts of college that I loved. So I went back and I knew I was going to excel because I knew I had a team behind me that was going to support me. Not saying that the other companies weren't going to provide that. There were amazing hiring managers that had conversations with me, but ultimately the people at Google was what kept me going back. And I was like, okay, this is what's going to help me excel and make me feel happy at work. So yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I love that you had so many choices and you felt very confident in your choice. I love that you felt similarities between Google and San Jose State. And I love to see your passion for this too. Now it is time to start wrapping up this really great conversation, Viri. And to finish off, I really love to ask people a couple of questions, and I ask these to everyone. So here are the two that I have for you. First is, what was one college myth that you busted for yourself in your experience?
Wow. I think one college myth, and it's actually funny fact, this was an icebreaker question at one of my work meetings, like not too long ago. So it's like one college myth that I busted. I always felt like I needed to do, okay, and I know I'm raving about my degree program and I still back that up, and I really loved my degree program. But the reason I did that degree program was because obviously I had a passion for analytics, had a passion for data. I was always really good at math. I loved numbers, but I've always had a creative side. Specifically when it comes to social media, I love taking pictures, sharing stuff, the storytelling aspect is another part that I love. So I always felt like I needed to go into a technical function to go into marketing. So I felt like, oh, if I do a technical function and have the technical background, I'd become even more relevant to marketing, which that was not the case. So I've actually been trying to transition into a formal marketing role. But for me to transition into a role like that, it's been so difficult because I felt like when I was in college, I felt like I needed to do the technical work, get the technical experience, and then I somehow magically would land into marketing, which was not the case. So I felt like one thing that college that I busted, now that I've graduated from college, is you don't have to do the most. Choosing a major that is true to you, that is where you ultimately want to end up, is very important. So, yeah, college proved to me that you don't have to take the harder route to get to where you need to go. And or to get to the career that you want to do. And in my case, I do love my job, but like I said, maybe if I would have taken the risk of going into marketing and actually tried it out, had I gotten my foot into, let's say, a marketing role a little sooner. So
Mhm.
it's okay to, take the risk and do what you want to do, even if it's at a small size company. I could have taken opportunities maybe in a marketing role at a smaller size company and gotten the experience and maybe applied later and then gotten into a formal marketing role at Google.
Right.
There's no clear path. Like, stay true to your passions, and it's always rewarding. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, staying true to yourself throughout life is very challenging. But what I'm hearing from you here for the college aspect is studying what you want to study. So, yes, you want to have marketable skills for this crazy, AKA shitty job market that we're in. So, get that. And at the same time, stay true to what you're interested in. A technical background is very valuable. And if there's also something you want to study, be brave and do that as well.
Yeah, 100%. Take the risk. Life is, I mean, not guaranteed, but life is a journey, and you're better off starting off early and like taking it's okay to start later too, but like
Hmm.
take the risk as soon as it hits your mind. Take the risk, and like you'd
Hmm.
be surprised where you'd go.
So now my last question for you, Viri. What advice would you give to people who didn't get into the schools they wanted to and have had to pivot?
For someone like me that might have ended up not getting into the universities that they wanted to, and were given, limited options and opportunities, you'd be surprised. It's not a limitation. It's not a door being closed, but it's just a rerouting. And I've found that you are always, as humans, we're adaptable, we're resilient, and we're on earth to, live our purpose and like complete life in the way that is most authentic to ourselves. So I think taking a step back when you receive your your decisions and your like essentially find out what your opportunities are, taking a step back, thinking about what your future looks like, what is that end goal that you want to. Think about where you see yourself in 5 years, and think about what's going to help get you there. And something I told one of my student interns just recently. She wanted to be a nurse. She got her decisions. There's two universities. There was one that was nearby, around a lot of amazing hospitals, and there was another one that was a little bit more rural, and it had, I think it was close to one medium-sized hospital. And I was like, okay, which one of these universities is closer to extracurriculars and resources? So like I'm telling her, like, think about what's going to get you to work in that function as fast as possible if that's what you want to do. I was like, is it going to be the college next to one hospital and not a lot of organization, or is it going to be the other university that's near multiple bigger hospitals, multiple organizations that you can volunteer at? Think about that. Think about what's going to help to get to that end goal and ultimately create that path. Decide on what, if it's community college, you might benefit from going to a community college faster. Like going to a community college, finishing your GEs faster, transferring to that university that's going to help land you closer to the career that you want to work in. And then ultimately, ride that out. Find opportunities, knock on those doors, message those people on LinkedIn, and you'd be surprised. I say create plan A, create plan B, and create plan C, because you never know. Things might shift.
Yeah, rejection is just redirection.
Redirection. Yes,
Yeah, and I think your
exactly.
story is a really great example of that. So, Vidi, thank you so much for being here with me today and sharing your story. I hope that it inspires other people who have also gotten results that were maybe unexpected to them. But I hope that they're inspired by knowing that, again, rejection is just redirection and that the unexpected can come with really great, unexpected positive results. I think you're a great example of that. My cheeks hurt from smiling this whole
Same.
time, and hearing you say all these amazing things. Y'all, you don't understand like how special it is to me to have one of my first students be this like beautiful adult working at Google and traveling all over the world. Just totally has made my day.
Thank you, Ale. Thank you so much for all that you've done for the people in our community, for myself, and for what you're doing in this podcast to help people across the world.